Hello, I'm Phoebe Boucher, Managing Editor of Raven Chronicles Press. Thank you for joining us for the next hour for Raven Talk, Raven's online podcast. We are hosting mostly monthly conversations with writers, artists, cultural warriors. And today we are honored to present a conversation with the Organization for Prostitution Survivors discussing art, healing, and transformation. The Organization for Prostitution Survivors' mission is to accompany survivors of prostitution in creating and sustaining efforts to heal from and end this practice of gender-based violence. OPS is survivor-founded, survivor-led, and staffed predominantly by survivors. There will be time for questions and comments, and if you have any, post them in the chat during the conversation today. First, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and that we occupy this land. With thanks to all our sponsors for partial funding of Raven programs, the City of Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, For Culture, King County Lodging Tax, the Washington State Arts Commission with NEA funding for our projects, and as always, thanks to all our individual donors. I'll introduce Moderator Nykki Canete, and she will introduce the rest of the staff. Nykki Canete is Director of Programs. As someone with both theoretical and experiential knowledge of exploitation, trauma, and systematic violence, Nykki has centered her life and career on creating equitable systems and environments by increasing the personal, social, economic, and political power of people with lived experiences. She received her Master of Social Work degree with a concentration in administration and public policy, and an additional graduate certificate in nonprofit management, both from the University of Washington. Prior to moving to Seattle, Nykki was employed as an anti-violence educator at UC Berkeley and founded a survivor-led education, training, and outreach program that works to dismantle the normalized culture of violence and create institutional change. Nykki, take it over.
Thank you so much, Phoebe, for that lovely introduction. Instead of me introducing all of my fellow ops panelists, I would love for actually each of them to take a moment and introduce themselves, if that's okay with everyone. Maybe names, roles, and maybe how long you've all been a part of the ops community. I think that might be insightful too in a lot of ways. I didn't pick anyone to start, but maybe Martha.
Yeah, I can start. First, just thank you, Phoebe Boucher and Raven Chronicles, for having us. I'm really excited to be here, and also happy Juneteenth, everybody. Yeah. So I'm Martha Linehan. My role at Ops is recovery and clinical support supervisor and integrated movement therapist. And I have been with Ops since the beginning of Ops. Both of the co-founders are here today, so I kind of tagged along with them and got in at the very beginning, and I never left. So yeah, I've been here all along. I'm very proud to say and grateful.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm SarahAnn, and I am an adult survivor advocate at Ops. I'm also a co-facilitator of our Monday art group. I am a survivor, and I was also a participant at one point, which was about 5 years ago. And then I've been working for about 1.5 years, and I'm very excited to be here. And I'm excited everybody's here. This is cool.
Okay, I know Rekina was having some technical difficulties too earlier. So
okay.
For now, maybe Searetha, and then hopefully Rekina can rejoin the conversation shortly.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Searetha. I started at Ops as a participant, in, I believe, 2013 or 2014. And I went on to the ops, oh my goodness, my thought just left me. Unto the ops, oh my goodness. Well, anyway, I was on an internship program and then I became employed part-time with the doing a group facilitator, and I am a survivor. I'm so sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Just also noting again, I think it was said a little bit earlier, but not planned of the planned panelists, but our two co-founders are watching right now. I don't know if that makes me more nervous or not. But Peter and Noelle are here. So just wanted to give a shout out and say hi. And thank you. And in a way, but that's okay. It's lovely to see you all here. Thank you everyone again for joining. I'm just going to say that for me. I know it's been said by Phoebe and Martha, but thank you. So today we're talking about how art can be used as a powerful tool to facilitate healing and transformation for everyone, but especially for survivors of violence and trauma, specifically in our case, commercial sexual exploitation, trafficking, prostitution, and how we've used it in our ops programming. I think what would be really helpful is to take a moment to kind of talk about and share some of the ways that art programming looks like at ops, and then also like how it came to be such an integral part of our programming. I know, Martha, that you have a lot to share with this, so if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah, I would love to jump in here. So I think I'll start with sort of how it happened, how it happened. And I feel like it's almost like a once upon a time. There was Peter Qualiatine and Noelle Gomez, who are still here and here today. But the three of us worked together in another organization, doing different things, although it was still related. We were working with CSEC, or commercially sexually exploited youth. And that's where we all got to know each other. Well, I knew Noelle a little longer in my work. So we were all working together. And then at one point, Peter and Noelle started talking about starting a new organization for adult survivors of commercial sexual exploitation. And I was still working at this other organization when they left and basically did that. As far as the art programming goes, Peter, who is an incredible artist, among many other things, he and I used to talk about art a lot when we were working together in the other organization. And you know, I feel like ops really was started. You know, Gloria Steinem says that like dreaming is planning, and that's kind of what it was. It kind of started with a dream, and then it was dreamt into reality thanks to Noelle and Peter. So Peter and I used to just have conversations about art and how when ops got started, we were going to offer art. One, because we knew how important it was, you know, in our own personal lives, both being artists, and how significant that was for our own growth and healing and identity. And then I learned a lot from Peter as well, because he'd already been working in the field as, I mean, he taught me a lot about being an ally to survivors, and how important it was to offer ways of connecting, for survivors to be able to connect with their personal stories in a new way, to be able to connect with each other, and to create space for that. And at the same time, of course, Noelle was a huge mentor of mine as far as how to work with survivors, and her being a survivor herself and me being an ally who loved working with survivors. Like, I already knew that. So the programming, so they started ops, and we started the art workshop right away, while we were, pretty much all doing day jobs. And as it turned out, there were certain things that we knew we wanted to include in the art workshop. And I think what I'm going to do is just sort of run through a list of things of that we were really intentional about building into the art workshop. And some of those things were first and foremost, creating safety, how to create safe space, community, how to, to create community, that this would be all about creating community, making art together versus, people making art on their own, or perhaps not making art at all, because it can be very hard to do it on your own. And one theme for survivors, which I think we'll hear about a little bit later, is just the idea of isolation and loneliness being in the life, because it's all about lack of community, really, and isolating survivors in that experience. A lot of it has to do, what we were very intentional is creating, having a meal. So making sure that people were nourished with food of all sorts. So actual food, home cooked meal was really important. And that's something we were able to do for years. And also other sorts of food and nourishment in terms of, emotional and creative and spiritual food in this space together. Other things that were very important were the idea of creating structure so that when the women came in, which was often kind of terrifying for them, at the beginning at least, was to have a structure so that people knew what to expect. And it was always on a Saturday, actually, at this time that we're having this podcast, from 2 to 5. So there were certain things that were always the same about the art workshop. And that took a lot of the anxiety out of it for people. And it was predictable in many ways. So we would start at a certain time. We would begin with a meal. There's social time and time to sort of engage, together. And that was, that wouldn't go on for too long, because that was sometimes very difficult for people, but we always made space for that. And then we would come together in a circle and create and introduce a theme. There would always be some kind of grounding activity so that people could just settle and transition into the creative space, which was the next part of the workshop. And a lot of those transitions were often, we use poems a lot, and still do throughout ops in all of our programming. And then when we go into the art making part of the workshop, and sometimes it would be very, people would be very talkative, and there would be a lot of energy in the room. And sometimes it would be very quiet, and people would just be working on their own. And then we would come back at the end of the art workshop and close, and people would have the option to share their work or not. So in the structure, there was always lots of choice, lots of space, and the ability for people to decide what they wanted to do that day. And I'll finish up because I don't want to go too long. But a lot of these elements are in all of ops programming today. All of the groups, and people will talk about some of the other groups we have. In our meetings, a lot of these elements are in place. We actually do a lot of art in all of the groups. A lot of poetry is all over the place. Pretty much everybody writes poetry and often shares it. And I think a lot of these sort of foundational elements that were integrated into the art workshop have just sort of spread across all of ops programming and the staff and the community in a really beautiful way, where it's kind of just a part of who we are. I'm going to stop there for now, and you can prompt me if there's anything I missed. Anybody, let me know.
Yeah, I'm going to go off my planned questions. And I think what would be really cool, SarahAnn, if you wanted to talk about just yesterday, because it has to do with art programming and like poetry and all the things and grounding, like all of those things. And I thought it might be helpful to kind of give a picture of what these things can look like, and not even in the op space, but how it's been brought out in the community. And then we can kind of return back to what.
Yeah, I would love to. So yesterday we teamed up with Black Coffee, who is, I can't even say enough good things about them. Like, they are truly the meaning of community. And so we have been teaming up with them. This is the second time we've done outreach from there. So yesterday we like made these little gold bags with like all these little cute things in it and went and passed them out. And then afterwards we had a poetry reading at the space at Black Coffee. So they have a grounded space and they let us use that space. And I made a balloon arch, like we made it all pretty and everything. And these amazing women came in and just like poured their souls out in front of everybody, and it was healing and powerful. And I mean, it was just it felt like home. It was very, 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 very amazing. So yeah, we are going to be trying to do this a lot more often because it's, you know, really community is what it's all about, and being able to bring people together. I mean, it's literally what saved my life. So I just love the fact that we are all coming together like that. And it was amazing. And then after our stuff was done, there was karaoke there, and a lot of the survivors were singing, and it was just, yeah, it was we were a bunch of party animals. It was really, really good night. Yeah. So yeah. And I love that Ops does that. Like, poetry is like everything to us. I don't think people realize how powerful words are. And you know, the same way we speak negative, you're planting that out. But when we speak life and speak life into these dead situations, I mean, it really changes a lot, and it makes things happen. So, and we're all about making things happen.
Yeah, for sure. Also straying from questions slightly too, just I was thinking, like, in our ops, we've talked about like what it looks like in our ops space, how we brought it just even last night in art in the form of like spoken word to Black Coffee, and through our outreach and things like that. And then also, like, I think it'd be really great to mention like the other forms that art workshop has like taken place, and at the jail art workshop specifically. So like Searetha, I know you were a facilitator to that, and I know we're hoping to get back to that as soon as possible. Same with Martha. So if you have anything to share about like what that looked like, or the experiences there, like how that kind of like similar to the shaping of community and those pieces, I'd love to hear more about that. Searetha, sorry, I don't know if I said it. And I know my thing has been cutting out, so hopefully that's not happening. But do you want to share anything about what jail art workshop looked like, or some of your experiences with it, with facilitating it?
Yes,
Awesome.
jail art workshop was the most amazing part of my job. To be able to go into the jail and to give the young women what was given to me when I was in jail, and to be able to get out of the jail space. Even if you're still in jail, you got to get out of the space in your mind, you know, and be creative. And so that was just the most amazing part. And then too, a few of the young ladies I knew from growing up with my children. So to go in there and to be able to support them on their journey, it meant a lot. So that is like the best part of ops, I do believe, is the art workshop, because art is healing. It's a way of working through your trauma. You can write about it, you can draw about it, you can doodle, and it doesn't have to be anything that's perfect, so that is like ops is awesome. And I'm glad to be part of it. I'm truly, truly thankful.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And this kind of, I know that everybody's kind of alluded to their own personal things. I'd love if you all are comfortable to kind of dive more into that, about like what your personal, how do I word this? Like, what has art programming specifically in ops like meant to you? Like, what did that look like? And what are some of the things that like you've noticed you got out of it or others have? Whoever wants to start.
I'll start. Wow. Well, art workshop. So I got into the life when I was very, very young, and was in the life for a very long time. So I had came to a point where I did not think that I was going to do anything else. Like, and I had totally been okay with that. I came to this weird acceptance with it. And then one day, a very close friend of mine that was also a survivor, and we were staying at a homeless shelter together, told me that she was taking me to an art workshop. And I was like, oh my God, an art workshop, like, this is gonna be stupid. So I went, and it was, first of all, the whole atmosphere of art workshop, like, I'm trying to think of the word, whimsical. Like, it was, when I walked in and there was the gates, I really thought like Tinkerbells lived there. Like, it was so beautiful, and there was plants everywhere, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then you walked in and there was all these high heels like lining the walls that had been turned into art, and I was just like, these are my people. Like, what the heck is going on? So of course, so I had to act tough. And Martha kept asking me to paint, and I kept saying, I don't paint. Finally, I picked up the paintbrush, and I know this sounds crazy, but it literally changed my life. Like, I just started painting everything. Anything that I could get my hands on, I painted it. And I didn't stop. Like, it was so, there was something about putting paint on a blank canvas that did it for me. And all of a sudden, like, just things started changing. I started taking chances. I got clean. I got an apartment. I got a job. Like, all these things. I started really painting. I had my first art, like, sold art my first time with ops. Didn't know how I was going to pay my rent. I left that day with $1,500. I had sold $1,500 in art. After that, I ended up doing a art show at the Seattle School of Sociology and Psychology. The name of it was Ho, which was honored over everything. And these things just started happening, and I truly believe it was because of art. It gave me a chance to, like, be in control of my story. Like, if I didn't want to do something or that didn't look right, I would just throw some more paint on it and start over again. And I really just started living my life like that, like, just picking up the pieces. And I ended up getting a job. I always knew, and I know Rekina felt the same way. As soon as I walked in there, I was like, I'm going to work here one day. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have any, well, I thought I didn't have any skills. But I knew that one day I was going to work there. And I got clean, and when I worked at another organization, and then I got, I had to interview, it happened twice, but I got here when I was supposed to be here. So, and now I get to, like, co-facilitate in the same art group with the same woman that got me, to have me paint. And on top of all that, you learn so much more. Like, apparently I didn't know how to breathe, and I learned how to breathe at ops. Like, a lot of things just changed for me. And and I still practice art to this day. Like it's a huge part of my life. I mean, it's probably the main like work, family art. My husband had to get me a she shed because he was sick of me painting everything in the house. So I use it in everything in my life. Like whether it's I need joy or whether I'm trying to deal with trauma, I use it no matter what. So that's my little story.
It's like another transferable skill for you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, yeah, I gotta say from my personal experience too, there is just something about ops, and there's something about the space and the people, and well, it comes from the people. And it's so interesting because I've been honored and like to hear, I've been privileged enough to hear all the personal stories of staff and participants and things like that. And like there's just this common thread of like they've walked in no matter what community they had or had not, or we've had or had not in the past or whatever, and like whatever walls and barriers we've put up or things like that, but walking in like almost immediately starting to tear down those. And like it's the space and the people and just like the whimsical, as you said, SarahAnn, magic that has been created and the love that's there. And it's just amazing. And like for me personally, like I wish I had known ops when I was experiencing the stuff that I was going through and stuff. And I wish that I had that access. And the way I entered ops was as an intern through my graduate program and things like that. And I just immediately fell in love with it. I was working with Peter a lot too. On there was a lot that I was going on, but like the community, like just the same thing that you said, SarahAnn, if I'm going to work there someday, I was like, I'm going to work there someday. I can't, I'm going to be part of this. I need to be part of this. Like, this feels like home. And like, I had moved from California and things like that. And it was everything that I needed that I didn't even know I needed. I kind of knew I needed, but like, it just brought it out so much more. And I've heard that like across the board. And I just think it's amazing how it's brought forth because of the pieces, the art, the community building, the meals. Like in our previous conversation, I can't remember which one who said it, but the smells, was that Searetha? Can you talk more about like your experience with that? Cause like that hit home for me.
About the food at ops. Yeah, well, it was what it was is that one day I wasn't there, and when another participant was the cook at the time. And so I told Martha, I know it's gonna be good. So I told her, I said, tell her to put her foot in it. And Martha didn't know what I was talking about, but it smells so good when we would have the food cooked. And that's what let me know ops was the place for me, because on one Saturday I came, I was smelling the food, laid down, went to sleep, and slept through the whole art workshop. Yes. So it's just amazing. Feels like home.
Really. And like, I know that we're talking about art, right? Or the overall thing about art, but like, I think it's really important to be talking about these other pieces that led to all of the healing and the transformation, or leads to it, and kind of pull it back to talk about like, we're talking senses here. Right. And I think Martha, maybe you had talked about that too, about like how that pulls. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was thinking, Searetha, when you were talking about the smell of the food, and you've also talked about the smell of the lavender, but the, trauma, working with all of the senses, like that's how we ground, that's how we come back to ourselves, is like connecting with all the senses. And the art making is also very tactile. I mean, people are doing all kinds of different things in terms of art making, but it's using the hands, it's using the body. I mean, we did a lot of clay work too, especially with the Green River Victims Memorial. So all of these things, when we're in survival mode, the creativity shuts down. I mean, because there are no resources. We don't have resources for that. So you can begin with all of the senses and actually come back to a sense of safety. And I think a lot of that is what happens in our space. I think, you know, the sound, taste, smells, you know, hugging. I mean, because we're a pretty physical group too. You know, unfortunately during the pandemic, things got stifled a little bit, but all of the senses and all of those things are brought into the art workshop and into all of the groups and into individual work as well. So I think that's kind of what I was thinking about, because we do talk a lot about smell, you know, smells at ops. And it's that home sense and that sense of belonging that happens, which is so critical for people who have experienced such extreme, you know, often lifelong trauma. It's
Yeah, I really agree with you, Martha. And also too is the visual part. Like, I feel like when you are able to know what something like, even if it's not technically what it looks like there, we've done art workshops where we have said, okay, let's draw, what does panic look like, or what is, you know what I mean, like what do those things look like? And when you're able to like actually physically make that, and you can see it and you can name it, for some reason it's so much easier to kind of get over. So I did a lot of, I still do that, but I do a lot of that. Like for a little while when I first got out of the game, like I always have, this is going to sound crazy, so please don't anyone call 911 to send me to the credit. But there was a girl in my head that would talk to me all the time. Like I would be doing good, and she would be like, this is not what you're doing. You're stupid. Don't do this. And it was really bothering me. And so somebody told me, paint her, like make a painting of her. And I did, and I never heard her voice again, ever. Like it was like she almost wanted to be painted. And I mean, that painting hangs up in my sister's house right now. But she and I wasn't, you know, it was almost like a tribute to her. And it just made things easier, you know, like it just, so when you can actually see something and it's visual, it's, for me, it's easier to process.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought of another question too that I had related. Are there, for any of you, are there any other projects or art pieces that you created in art workshop that like your favorite things that you've done during your time at the workshops, or Martha facilitating? Yeah, I know the shoes keep getting mentioned, and it's one of my favorite things. I didn't get to experience it, but like it's one of my favorite things to hear about. But like, are there, what else? Like what was there? What other projects just really like help process or whatever you needed in the moment? Which ones are like jumping out in this moment?
I can say for me, my favorite art project was a multimedia project, and is where I found someone's painting of trees and sun and all that, and then I put the colored pictures of the Green River victims' faces on it, and then put a veil over it, you know, and it means so much to me, you know, it's because they didn't get a chance, you know, to live or whatever. So they were just pure to me, and I put the veil over them because I feel that they're pure. So that's the best thing for me.
Searetha, that's so crazy you said that, because I was gonna say my Green River one. I did this one when I very first started going, and I had we had the pictures of all the women, and I cut them all into individual pictures, and I put them on a map, and then I put like these stone, I don't know, it was really cool though. And yeah, I like any of the art that has to do with those amazing women. Like last night, coworker read a poem and said out loud every name, and it was just so like, I was just like, this is what it's about, like this is why what we're supposed to be doing. And yeah, so I would say my favorite art project was when we did that, and the tiles, like when we actually did for the Green River. But yeah, I like that, was a lot of fun. Well, and healing, fun, all that, those kind of things.
Absolutely. Martha, what about you? What's your...
Well, I could name, I mean, the pieces that SarahAnn and Searetha just mentioned, those are incredible pieces. And unfortunately, Rekina is having technical issues. So I don't know if we're going to get to hear from Rekina, because she has amazing words and things to contribute as well. But yeah, those two pieces. But I'm also, I mean, I'm thinking like all these things are going through my mind. Like I remember the mobile that you made, Searetha, with all of the sort of elements of nature on it, and you hung them from driftwood. I mean, I don't even know what that art project was, but it probably had something to do with nature. I mean, the range of themes, because primarily it's very theme focused, and then people can kind of interpret it however they want. And it was never so much instruction, because that's not my strength. First of all, other people would come in and maybe do more instruction than I would. Do you remember that piece I'm talking about, Searetha? I think you actually sold that one too.
Wait, which one?
It was a mobile that you made with driftwood and animals and just elements of nature, which you've always talked about how that is what, brings you back to your serenity and your peace, and, as it does for many people. And it was just, it would hang, and it would move, and it was so beautiful. I mean, and again, just you constructed it, like this idea of constructing artwork too. The shoes I just want to mention, because they keep getting mentioned here, and the high heels are just such an incredible art project. And that was facilitated by a guest artist. And we've also brought guest artists into Ops, which I think is also really amazing. And that was Michelle de la Vega, who introduced that art project to Ops. And she would come once a month, I think for a year, and we would work on the shoes. And so it was really, sculpture, mixed media. And I mean, we've had other people come in who have just done, shared and introduced just incredible, creative, empowering, like new languages for us in a way to work with. That's what it feels like to me as well. Because of course I'm getting as much out of this as anybody, when we're all together. I don't know if I answered your question, Nykki, but.
Absolutely.
And sorry.
Go ahead. No, please, SarahAnn, go.
And also too, like, there's so much things that art does that we don't even really think about, like that you're kind of like, oh yeah, maybe it does do that. Like, it made me believe that I was very smart. I mean, I know I'm very smart, but it showed me like that, oh, wait a minute, I'm kind of smart. So, and it really was something that was really cool for me. So I watch a lot of, I go to YouTube University. So I watch a lot of document about artists, and I read about it, and I love it. And I can really sit in a room with somebody and talk art. And I, like, when we do Monday Art Group, I love it when the survivors do that. Like, we will bring up different artists and, talk about like Picasso's Blue Stage or whatever. Like, that stuff it builds confidence. It builds security. Like, it's very, very important. Those little things that you don't really think about. Like, Martha took me to the art museum. I had never been to an art museum. Like, I was like in awe. I was like, oh my gosh, like how big things were, the scale of things, like how much paint was on. It was just so amazing. And to be able to look at a painting this close, like, it's really, those things really help, like, especially people who believe that they've never been nothing, or they don't belong, or they're forgotten. Like, those things are very, very important things. So we have to remember the little things, like, not just, oh, you made a good picture, but like, no, now I know I'm smart. So yeah, I really, I appreciate having the space to do that, because, if we wouldn't have had the space to do that, I would have never, yeah. Or maybe, you never know, but yeah, it probably wouldn't have been.
There's another thing I thought about, is the idea of being able to create and not be competing, with each other and it all and that, yeah, and that's beautiful. Like, that's a beautiful thing. Not comparing, you know, ourselves or our artwork to anybody else's, which is also a beautiful thing. And that certainly cultivates and nurtures, you know, identity. Like, we get to actually explore who we are and what we want to do and what feels good and what doesn't feel good, and we may choose to do it anyhow, like all of those things. And for survivors, and this is all stuff that I've learned from survivors firsthand, I mean, is that idea of competition was so strong. I mean, and that's what our society, you know, it's just women pitted against each other, and, you know, and then in the life, it's just, you know, to the thousandth degree in terms of, there's not that sense of sisterhood. And I guess we haven't said that word yet. And that's a big one also in the art, at ops in general, and also in the art workshop, is that idea of sisterhood and connection, and being able to come in and connect with peers is, I mean, I don't think there's anything more powerful than that, really. I think Searetha, I don't think you're talking to us, right? So that also gets created, and all of the side effects and, you know, beautiful fallout from all of those things is, it's kind of like infinite possibility gets created. I mean, that might sound really far out, but I believe it's true. And I feel like I've witnessed that time and time again at ops, is just the things that happen in the lives of the women who come, and how we are with each other. I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, last night I was exhausted yesterday. I didn't even want to go out and do our outreach and go up to Black Coffee, but I was like, I know when I get there and I see everybody, everything's going to change. And it did. I was like there and everything shifted for me. And that's the community piece. And that I learned and discovered that at ops. Like, I never really knew about that before. I mean, I know that from other things like recovery programs and things like that now, but so all of that's brought in, which is amazing. I think it happens.
Yeah, and when you said, Martha, like it, you know, like it kind of creeps through into other things, like not only were we there, but participants' family was there. So these skills like flow to our family. My daughter is an artist now, a phenomenal artist. She's also a poet. She just spoke with me on a panel the other day. Like, those things start to drift in, which we don't talk about enough, like the whole family part of it, but like that, it starts to drift into that, you know, like they, you know, all my sons write, like because they, you know, saw me lead it by example. And so not only does this whole thing help us, but it helps the people around us. Yeah, so that's, to me, that's probably the best part about it. Like, everybody kind of gets touched by this thing that, you know, seems so small, but is really very, very powerful.
Yes, I would like to chime in on that. That is so true, because my granddaughter, she loves ops, and she has artwork that she's done. And yesterday her Nana passed away, so she wanted to say her little piece that she had said for her Nana. And she also wanted to do karaoke, but I was tired. I was like, I can't even fill the form out right now. So next time we come up to Black Coffee, Mommy, I have you, and you could do some karaoke too. So it really does help with the families. And my daughter is in a place that I wish she was in a different place right now. I said, but the only thing I can do is model my healing. And if I model my healing, then that is going to touch her also. When it's time, her time is not my time. So
Yeah, and I was just thinking about like art workshops, how they looked and how we would often have the kids in the room, right? Like kids are often in the room, that and other programming at Ops and stuff like that too. And that's one thing I think is so great about Ops is we're literally, like you said, modeling, right? And they're saying, and they're off at their table. And I know this was brought into the previous conversation, and a couple people spoke on it, and like they're at their table drawing and doing their art stuff while watching us, gather around together and building community. And like the how old are our kids? Like I'm thinking like when they were back doing that, when we were fully in person and things like that, 4, 5, 6, like little ones, like getting this from such an early age that I know many of us didn't have. And so like fostering that and building that in our own families now is it's so powerful and amazing. And like, I feel so much more secure about a lot of things that like I wouldn't have about my daughter growing up and things like that. You know what I mean? Because of you all, because of Ops. And so it's just incredibly powerful. And we too now are all into art. I never thought I was an artist like that. I sing things like that kind of for fun and stuff, but like art, I'm all about it now. Like paint pouring is like my thing because I had to be so in control and like because I felt so out of control of my life, things like that. And I've learned to be okay with a lack of control and seeing the beauty that comes out of it. And it's just amazing. It's like
and your daughter is very talented.
Yeah. Oh my God. She can draw. Like I can't, she's 7 and it blows me away. Did not get that from me, I would say. And it's just beautiful. Yeah. Thank you, SarahAnn. I know that we're pretty much at time and we want to make sure that like there's time available for questions if the audience has any. Yeah, do you? Is there anything people are yearning to know about Ops programming or art in general? Or I know we kind of piecemealed our conversation together. So any clarification or anything you would like?
Any questions? Anyone?
I do have a question. So I'm an art teacher and I work with kids with autism and ADHD who've also been through a lot of trauma. And you guys mentioned like when you first started doing the art projects and the art programs, a lot of you felt like, oh, I can't paint, I don't want to do it. And I was just wondering, like as facilitators, how do you enter into conversation with kids or adults who are in that place? Like what's some of the vocabulary you use and how do you encourage them and wait for their time?
Can I answer that? Okay. This is I think the best thing to say. There is no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. So that it takes that pressure off immediately. Like no matter what you do, it's gonna be amazing. So like really like saying that and like bringing that energy to it, because once you figure out that there's no right or wrong answer or there's no good or bad, like the creative juices just start flowing. So I think that's the best thing. Like that's what got me. Like Martha was like, it's okay, you just gonna paint. And so I just that there's no right or wrong.
No mistakes at all. Nothing.
And if there is one, you just paint over it and you start again.
Exactly.
Or I tell my daughter this all the time, art becomes what it wants to, what it wants to be. It just becomes what it needs to be, what it wants to be. And that's okay, whatever it is. It may not be what you wanted when you first started or needed or like thought it was going to be. And it still turns out exactly as beautiful, like what it's meant to be.
Yeah, and show them art from like, come on, there's art, there's famous paintings that you're like, did a 5-year-old do that? No, like that's a famous painting. Like, so like showing them those, like self-portraits that Picasso did, they're strange, they're awkward, but it just goes to show them that it doesn't matter. Like it's about you.
Yeah. And I think, fun, like art making it's not always fun, but it can be really fun. So you can turn it into, if it's with children you're talking about, like into more of a game, bring movement into it, I think, and that idea of like, there are no mistakes and sort of the spirit of like, just curiosity, however you might use, share that idea with children. Like you're just experimenting, you're exploring this thing, that can take the pressure out of it as well. And then also, I mean, which we did this, when people finish things, a lot of times they wanted to destroy the art, not necessarily because it was bad or they didn't like it, but because they didn't want to share it, because they were processing something in the art and they didn't want to take it home. They didn't want to leave it with us either. And a lot of the art gets left at Ops, which is why our space is covered with art, which is awesome. But you can just, make art and then burn it. We've had some incredible, like breaking things, burning things, like that's part of the creative process too. And you can also usually make stuff with what's left over, which is also pretty cool. But maybe not with kids.
And it's okay to be messy. Everything I own has paint on it. It's who I am now. So like there's just it's just being. So like, who cares if you get paint somewhere? Like that's, it's that inner child in you that you're holding on to.
Thanks. That's all really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we work with junior high schools and high schoolers, and our junior high schoolers, they love getting messy, and our high schoolers, they're like really nervous.
What a cool job too. That is such a cool job to where I bet you get some great paintings out of that.
Oh yeah, they're great. They give me life.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I think especially for high schoolers too, is like making it more like, make sure the projects are kind of relevant to what their experience is. I know like mixed media is often something that I've seen bring out way more emotion and communication in teenagers than like I would normally see, and things of like very specific to their wants, their dreams, or like what's popular in social media, or like expression, like TikTok videos, like dancing, like things like that, you know what I mean? I've seen really be helpful to kind of draw it out into the engagement piece. Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? Well, I really thank everyone for being here. This has been, you guys are amazing. What an honor. And I just feel really lucky Martha's a friend of mine, so I know her. I don't know any of you, but all of a sudden I feel like you're all my friends. And I really thank you for coming here and joining us and having this conversation, which is a very important conversation. So I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Phoebe. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Phoebe. And thank you,
you,
Peter and Noel, for being here today. None of this would have happened without you two.
Thanks, Peter.
You guys are rock stars.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
We
I have a life I could never even imagine now that I've been introduced to Ops. Come on.
Yep. Just because you nerds got together.
I know, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Good night.
All right. Good night.
Love you.
I love you,
Love you
Sarah.
all. Love you all.
Love you all.